So astrology is a weird subculture, isn't it? It's a strange underworld and a strange language. So what do? You've now discovered this very weird world of these strange symbols. Where do you find community? Stay tuned, that's what this video is about, finding the others. You know, like I was saying, it's a subculture, it's a worldview, it's a language, it's an approach to reality, but it's one of those things, astrology, that it's kind of before and after the glasses get put on. You know, before you see the world like most other people, the world that you were encultured into, I don't know if that's a verb, the world that you were in, you know, that formed you through school. It's not taught in school where I'm from. For me, you know, I got bit by the astrology bug, and then I became completely saturated in the astrological worldview, and so the glasses come on, and now I'm an astrologer and I see things astrologically. Finding like-minded people can be a very central and necessary thing in life. It's just like Timothy Leary says, find the others, or was that Terence McKenna? But you know, is that easy to do in this day and age of social media being omnipresent? It's, in some ways it feels like, yeah, it's maybe easier than ever to find other people. Yet in other ways, with social media's kind of isolating power, so much information yet so alone, because it's that black mirror that we're all staring into, there can be unique, I think, challenges in our current moment to find community in astrology. And it's a big topic. I see astrologers always on Twitter, it's a recurring topic, community, finding community. Is the community healthy? Is it supportive? I want to just start off and say, you know, different people have different personalities and they have different needs around community. Some people are natural loners or natural separators. You know, maybe that Aries archetype where you find the ram alone off in the mountainside. You know, there's kind of a separating energy and a kind of maverick energy. Other people really need community. They really need to be around people. The Cancer energy comes to mind. Or, you know, maybe the social sign of Libra, where you have a connection and a group that you sort of really need to rely on for emotional and intellectual stimulation and support. So that's the first thing I'll say. There's no one-size-fits-all answer to where is the astrology community. How does the astrology community function for each astrologer? There's no one-size-fits-all. And I would encourage you to reflect on that. I mean, where have you found community on other subcultures or in other times in your life? What are your needs in terms of a community? It might help clarifying that through some interpersonal reflection before coming in and looking for it in the astrological world. The other thing is that it's inevitable to have very different ideas about astrology, what it can do, how it should be applied, and even it's notorious for having big fights amongst astrologers. Even in the current community, those of you who have been in it in a while, there's these notorious rivalries, people that have long-standing feuds, schools that are competing with each other, both around techniques but also for business. And so the astrology community is not immune, like any community or any group of humans, to infighting and rivalry. So to expect that won't be part of what you're getting involved in, I think, is very naive. You will find these fights, and it will be kind of up to you. Do you want to take sides? I think that's where the question comes in here. Do you want to pick a side or engage in battles? Or like me, I'm very much someone who likes to be friends with everyone if I can. And it takes a lot for me to like block someone or write someone off. They really have to like transcend astrological dispute and go into real mean-spirited kind of wrong speech that's almost unforgivable. That's what you have to do for me to kind of get on my bad list, just so you know. But the community, you may want to engage, you may want to pick a side and do some battle out there, and it can be healthy too for communities to go at it with each other. It can, you know, may the best idea win. If there are technical disputes, show me your work, show me your research. Let's hash it out. You know, I think sometimes conflict, we don't give it the credit that it deserves for how powerful and how clarifying it can be to build relationship. That kind of keep your enemies close. A lot of times people are these rivals, but they're relying on each other for notoriety even. So I want to also just say there's famous astrologers in the past. There's one of my favorite astrologers, Grant Louis. he was known for being a complete lone wolf. He just said, I don't want to have a community. I'm my own thing. And he was just in his world writing books. He wrote for a lot of magazines, and he's got some books that he published. So that's okay too. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's no requirement that you become a social butterfly just because you're an astrologer. You can do this work in more of a restricted or isolated capacity, and sometimes people produce better in that environment. Like, I'm not going to have a whole community on my website that I have to moderate. I want to spend my time writing books or writing essays or making videos, whatever that is for you. And then Stephen Forrest, he's mentioned this publicly, so I can say it here. He left, I believe it was ISAR, because of disputes. He just said, I don't have time for these disputes, and he then focused on the community that he had created through his own work. So that's okay too. You may want to not, join conferences or join groups of astrologers that are by name, the organizations is what I'm saying. You may want to start your own group where you can kind of be king or queen or the regal feature, the center of the attention. That might be your personality. Maybe you have a lot of Leo in your chart. And I also just want to say here, there's great success stories for working together as well. And I think of UAC, the United Astrology Conference. It's put on every 4 to 6 years. You have astro-orgs, astrology organizations of all different types coming together. There's even I think it's the American Conference on Vedic Astrologers, or the American Vedic Astrologer Organization. I can't think of the exact name right now. I mean, that's a whole different field of astrology. They use a different zodiac, many of them, most of them. NCGR and ISAR, so these orgs that might seem like they're competing on various levels, they join together to put on the biggest conference of the decade, twice a decade. So there's these great successes. The other thing, I was speaking to a colleague of mine recently about ethics rules and how those are formulated when astrologers come together and bat around ideas about very important things for our community and for our profession. And through those deliberate meetings and exchanges through community, we get actually promulgated ethics guidelines that really serve greatly astrologers as we try to navigate giving our consultations as best as we can and being as good as we can be as astrologers in the most ethical fashion. So there are these great victories of joining a community of astrologers and engaging with them. In the current community, there's various ways to participate. I'm going to list a few here to give you some ideas. I think about social media in general. It's a big part of our reality, and it's increasingly becoming a big part of the astrological community. But you have Twitter, if you like writing or like sharing ideas. Twitter's a good place to share your video content or your blog posts. There's a very active community on Twitter. That's the first social media platform that I got engaged in heavily with the astrology community, and was the only one that I engaged in for a long time. And now I do YouTube. So you have the different personalities of the different social media platforms might suit you better. I know many astrologers love Instagram for astrological content because they can combine that visual design language with, it's more visual and more design oriented than Twitter, which is more language oriented. But there's public exchange. You can interview people on your YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing some of those this fall. You can engage with people, at conferences or groups in your city where you're out engaging like in a conference style setting. So this is not necessarily social media. This is more of a back and forth and a dialogue that gets created in real time, whether in person or on a video conference. There are YouTube videos where you're listening to other astrologers, or you might put podcasts in that way. That builds community. Just knowing other people are talking the language that you've become passionate about. You might feel part of a community even if you're not known. That's a way to engage in the community, taking in passively content. I'm sure some of you listen to my channel like that maybe you haven't reached out yet to other astrologers, and maybe you don't want to, and that's okay. You have community through my channel and channels like mine. There's forums where it's not necessarily Twitter, which is that public, endless stream of consciousness, but there's forums. I think about SkyScript has an amazing forum. A lot of great astrological work is done on that forum. And those are kind of a decade old, maybe, or even 2 decades old. It's kind of old internet 1.0. But you could have forums of conversation. And then next, I would say private communications, finding that one astrological buddy or that friend that's also an enthusiast, or colleagues. Like for me, I was just saying I was communicating with a colleague recently about the ethics rules. And those one-on-one friendships that then develop, those professional exchanges that can happen in private to help give you the sense that you're not alone and give you what friends give each other, which is support. So finding supportive friends within this community, whatever level you're at or whatever ambitions you have for your astrological practice, that can be essential, those one-on-one exchanges. Then the last thing I'll say is consultation. So for me as a professional astrologer and as a consulting astrologer, that's a big part of my community. My clients are some of the best people that I've met since I started my practice, and I really value them and value their interactions with me and the exchanges we have. So it's a very important part of my astrological community, or the clients that I've met and then become friends with. There's also classes and courses. If you want to take a course from an astrologer, that's an instant way into a community. You have the other students that you're studying with. You have the teacher as someone who can maybe provide some community. And finally, I'll say this: we can connect through books with astrologers that have passed on. I'll give an example. This is not I'll give an astrological example and a non-astrological example. The first is non-astrological. Henry Miller's my favorite writer, or one of my favorite writers. I feel real kinship to his novels and the ideas that he expresses, and I feel like I've met Henry Miller and been with him just from reading the books a few times. There's a sense of community I feel just in communion with him and his spirit, to use that noun, commune, the verb, being in communion. But we can connect with, so astrologers that are long past that I feel a connection with, well, some of the ancient astrologers, to be honest, I really feel connected to Ptolemy. I'm not alone in that, the most famous astrologer, most popular astrologer in history. Something about some of those English translations, or like the Ashman translation, just really sings to me. And I really feel connected to the Ptolemaic ideas that he sets up in the Tetrabiblos. Maybe a more contemporary version, I would say someone like Dane Rudyard. I feel there's a communing with some kind of greater spirit, reading some of his ideas, especially about like the houses or the signs. He does a really good job of exploring those things. But so yeah, check out books, read astrologers' writing, and that might make you feel a sense of, hey, I'm not alone. I've got a community, or I can commune with astrological ideas. Good luck in your practice, good luck in finding the others, and good luck in your community building. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking and subscribing the video. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, a tarot reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep the videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.